My name's Amy Dotson, and I'm the director of the Northwest Film Center, and I'm joined by my colleagues December Carson and Ben Popp, and Tim Williams, who co-hosts this with us, and he's the head of Oregon Film. So welcome to those of you who haven't been on before, and to all of you who are not exactly newbies. Some of you I've seen for maybe 14 or 15 straight weeks. Welcome back. It's going to be a really fun day, and I hope everybody's ready to hear from Anish and Neil. I know I am, and we got a lot of great feedback from some of our board members that they'd be joining today too. So if you're part of our board, thanks for coming. That's awesome. And I hope that it'll be fun for you, and you'll learn a little bit about what Anish and Neil are up to. And, you know, we'll start off with just some house rules. One is that we are recording this. So just if you have some friends or folks that want to watch this another time, we can certainly send it on to them, and it's in the PAM and Northwest Film Center newsletter, so send them along. And we will talk for probably 15-20 minutes. Tim and I'll ask some questions of the two of them, and then we'll open up to you all. And so if you can put your questions in the chat area, we will kind of just go through as they go and ask questions and see where we're at. Anything that I'm forgetting, December, Tim, Ben, before we kick it off? I'm probably being really casual because I'm in my Pee Wee Herman t-shirt in my backyard. It's been a week. I hope it's been a good week for all of you. It was a good week, but it was a week where this was the shirt. This was the day, so. Yeah. So anything from you, Tim, December, Ben? All good?
I'm good, as long as everyone can mute themselves unless they're speaking. And then if they have a question, just throw it in the chat box.
Right on.
Yep, I'm all good as well. Just want to really thank Neil and Anish for being here, because I was really bummed we were not able to see this movie at PIF. There were so many great Oregon movies at PIF, and this was the cornerstone of them all on that Friday night, and I'm really bummed we didn't get to see it. So if you haven't seen this movie, you need to see this movie, and I'm really excited we're talking about it. So thanks for being here, guys. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having us. Happy to be here.
And we are available on VOD if that's not shameless. That just happened.
Oh, it's not shameless.
I felt like we had to say it. So that all just happened.
Well, maybe we can start off by the two of you just introducing yourselves and talking a little bit about your work, specifically, of course, with this film, but your work in general as producers and a producing team.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want me to kick that off?
Kick it off.
Well, you know, we're here in town. I guess just to kind of back us into this moment in time, we were in New Orleans prepping a movie, from January through March. And so we were there when kind of the shutdown happened. We were 3 weeks from shooting. And so we kind of scrambled home, and, I'm sure like everybody's just been kind of trying to figure out what this means for us, for our industry, for our movies. And, right around that time, First Cow was like getting pulled from the PIF screening and pulled from theaters. And so it's been a crazy couple months, which I'm sure everybody would agree. We have just been kind of like, about a month ago, Anish and I decided that we were going to just hive together like family and come into the office every day and just try to have like one little piece of normal kind of business. And so
that's why there isn't 6 feet between us. So if anyone's kind of bothered by that, know that we've been hiving, or whatever the word is.
Yep. So that's kind of our world right now, is honestly just trying to figure out how in the world we can resume our production in New Orleans and, kind of seek out any sort of normalcy. Sorry if I didn't answer the actual question.
Maybe you can talk for a minute just about before this project and before the project in New Orleans, maybe just, for anybody unfamiliar with your producing profile, sure. Just a little bit about how you got started and what kind of films you make and all that good stuff. A little preamble would be great.
Yeah. So we are producing partners. We've actually been a team since 2005 when we produced Old Joy together. I was more present on the shoot for Old Joy, and Anish was more present for post-production in New York, and that was Kelly Reichert's first film since her original River of Grass movie. But and we actually met at Sundance when Old Joy was premiering, and so we have teamed up for nearly every movie since then. And I'd say the past 10 years, I don't think we've done a movie without each other.
Yeah, I think we kind of formalized things about a decade ago, but it was feeling like inevitable that we were going to kind of become a sort of an official producing team or whatever. I mean, Old Joy was that year was that year was the year I did my first feature. So that in essence was the first feature film I've ever done, and I think you too.
It was
right?
my first, yeah.
So we've done our first movie together, and now we do them all together.
Yeah, and Kelly Riker, you know, really did bring us together, and I guess First Cow is our seventh movie with her, or sixth, something like that. So we have, you know, done most of our films with her. We've worked with Jeremy Saunier on movies like Green Room and Hold the Dark, and Blue Ruin, which was more Anish. And Macon Blair, we did I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore here in Portland. And yeah, there's a couple of other directors we've worked with, but you know, that's sort of the cornerstone of, I guess, our work together.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And you know, as you were alluding to, it's been quite a whirlwind for everybody. But your case study in particular, starting with PIF and, you know, kind of halting there, coming home, you know, how maybe whatever you feel comfortable sharing, just, you know, that journey from kind of the middle of March until now, where it is out on VOD and it is playing perhaps in a different way than you or Kelly or investors might have first planned for. Just walking us through kind of how that was and how the decision came to be that, you know, the release would be, you know, in a very different way and in a very different time of year.
Yeah, it was a little unique. You know, the movie was scheduled to open on March 6th, which it did, and then it was gonna roll out into more cities. March 13th felt like kind of the day that everything started to officially shut down. So we had that perfect misfortune of already kind of opening the gate to the movie, which you know, had problems because we'd already sort of put in the marketing effort to the film, and then it had to get kind of pulled and canned. And at the time, the idea was that we would release later in the year, and it wasn't until maybe about a month ago or maybe 6 weeks ago that the idea came that we might need, considering what's going on, theaters are going to be at a more limited capacity, and even then we're not even sure what theaters are going to open in what markets, considering we've opened up in different markets, et cetera. And so this just kind of felt like, unfortunately or fortunately, I'm not really sure yet because it's so new, the sort of better path forward for the film, because I mean, even now it's still such an unknown. What are theaters going to be? And I think we kind of had to ask ourselves the same question of like, would we go to a movie theater, and are we really going to start encouraging other people to go to movie theaters? And we kind of had that sort of ethical dilemma that we were able to kind of openly talk to with A24 about. And this just sort of we just sort of honed in on this date, and it's been cool. You know, I mean, I feel like if I've been watching a lot of stuff online and on VOD, I feel like it's a great time to. No doubt this film being 4:3 feels a little compromised, given it being like this sort of premier platform to be online, but the film does look good, and we're happy it's out in the world now, just because so much had already been written about it. And I'm truly always conscious and fearful of films getting cold, and I was worried that we premiered the film last September, like at Telluride. So how long were we really going to wait before we got it out to the world? So it was a conversation that we got to have with A24, and we all kind of came to the same sort of reasoning. I mean, it's with a little reluctance, especially with Kelly, but I think everyone kind of gets it. It is just kind of making the best of this situation.
I know it's probably too early for numbers, but you know, one thing, because we were able to do the event with you all last week, where you know, Kelly had done a little Q&A, and then, you know, it was like the night before the VOD release, and you know, we had not only you know, 300 plus folks come on to see the film, but you know, I think there were a lot of folks that maybe wouldn't have come to our theater or hadn't come to our theater in the past that got to experience the movie. So I'm curious if you're seeing numbers or getting any feedback even in the early days from A24 that, there are new audiences or different audiences that are able to access your work and Kelly's work at this time.
Yeah, I mean, I think every distributor is somewhat cagey about numbers. They're very good at making us feel good about how the film is doing. They have said that the film is performing better than they expected, without giving us any kind of specificity. And to be fair, it did just come out last Friday, and I think that there might actually truly be a little time before that number sort of becomes specific across the various platforms. And also, the fact is that we're on purchase right now, and I think there's going to be a rental uptick when we got on rental next week. I hope that we start to get solid numbers for no other reason than I'm curious, but I do feel like they're going to protect that information like they tend to until it comes out in the reporting. But they feel good about it, so I guess we do.
And the opening weekend in theaters, March 6th, was, I think, Kelly's best theatrical performance ever. Though short-lived, it was exciting.
Yeah, solid week.
I'll ask one more question before I toss it over to Tim, but I would imagine, much like a bunch of folks on this call, you're thinking about what you're producing and developing and your partnership and all of it in new ways, and really thinking about, hey, is this going to last another 3 months, 6 months, or are we going to have to really look at things differently for the foreseeable future? Anything that you're willing to share about just how you are dealing with the changes that are out there and the things that are so wildly unknown at this moment?
Well, I mean, I don't think we really know what it means totally for us yet. I mean, I think we're all still wondering, okay, how long is it going to last, or is this just a permanent sort of reality? But I mean, just quickly, I think that we've been reading a lot, and we've kind of had a chance to sort of dive into more novels and kind of consider just material that we maybe wouldn't have time to really think about putting together. And so that's led to a couple of new conversations, which are exciting now. Nothing that's fully formed or official, but just, going deeper and wider for material and really, kind of expanding maybe the types of things we would normally try to do.
And we've been like crazy trying to get in touch with every studio distributor just to see what their COVID protocols are, figuring that that's going to be something that we need to bake into any budget or sort of approach or strategy towards any kind of film that we make. I mean, I know it's probably none of that stuff is written in ink right now and it's still evolving, but to kind of get an idea of how they're thinking about things is important to us because it's not going to be insignificant. I mean, the COVID impact on budgets is real, and that just leads to more time, which runs into schedules, et cetera, et cetera. So we're just trying to be a little more proactive on how we think about what it's going to mean to make movies, at least in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Jumping in for half a second, but backing up a little bit in terms of, you guys have been really good at sort of developing talent, your relationship with talent over time, whether that's Jeremy or whether that's Kelly or whether that's Megan. I'm just curious how the company, how you guys work together.
Saved by the Bell. There it is.
Did I get cut off?
There you
Sorry
are.
about that.
Yeah,
sorry, my phone rang and it took over my thing. Can you talk a little bit about the formation of the company, how you guys work together, how you stuck with so many different pieces of talent over multiple movies? Because that's really a big thing for a company, to have multiple filmmakers that are making multiple movies with you. And was that part of the ethos going out, or how did the company come about, and how's it been working the last 10 years?
Definitely. I feel like it's all about kind of creating that long-term relationship with any filmmaker. We've never, I think for us, we don't want to be armchair producers. We're so focused on kind of being present and being there every day and really being shoulder to shoulder with with the director and the sort of creative brain trust of any project. And that's kind of by design. I mean, I think that we could just sign on to do dozens of projects and kind of be half involved and get a check, but we kind of have no interest in doing that. We feel like especially the filmmakers we work with, they need this kind of support that we can bring them. I mean, I think that we are good with Jeremy and Kelly and making a kind of helping them kind of ground their ideas into kind of reality. And we're constantly in touch with them about anything that they're working on. And that's just important to us. Like, I feel like even between movies, we're all still very much just as much in touch.
Yeah.
And that's hugely, hugely important to us. And I think it just kind of, you know, hopefully we're indispensable to them, and they can lean on us to kind of help them sort of develop projects and take them out into the world. And that's kind of what we want, is to kind of create a family of filmmakers.
And,
Well,
and
also,
film science is,
go ahead, Neil, sorry.
I was going to say, film science is really just Anish, myself, and we have one other producing partner, Vincent. And that's it. We don't have assistants or staff or anything like that. It's just us.
Yeah.
So that is kind of important to the ethos of the company. And, you know, there have been projects and just schedule conflicts and things where there is a lot of pressure for us to split up. And we've really fought that to this day. It's never happened, because like making movies, like, and producing them specifically, is still scary to us. You know, there's a lot of fear involved. There's like a lot that can go wrong. And like movies, unlike other businesses, like people's like lives are on the line, you know, their creative livelihoods, and projects are just too important to writers and directors to sort of be taken casually. So there's a huge weight that I think we both carry when we take something on. And it's really nice to have like a partner, you know, day in and day out, just to kind of bounce problems, like figure out how to like respond to complicated situations, whatever it is. It's really nice to just talk to somebody.
Yeah, and that's huge. You don't see that often with teams. You do see that sort of somebody takes point and somebody sits back, and that's really amazing. But you also have developed this almost end-to-end kind of thing where I'm sure you're talking about early stage ideas, processes, development stuff with John and Kelly, and with Meek, and with Jeremy, with everybody. Yeah. And then you're taking that all the way through to delivery, all the way through to marketing, all the way through to the other end. That is a huge amount of work, but also that's what producing is. And I think that's kind of an amazing sort of testimony to what you do with these filmmakers. It is an unusual thing. Do you guys set out to be that, or is that just the way you work and that's why it's worked so well?
I think because we started an independent film and we didn't come up through like the industry in a way and come at it from maybe an executive chair or anything like that. We're so used to wearing so many hats that sort of necessary. And I think as our films grew, we just still very much either grew more and more interested with all aspects of production and everything like that, and just started to incorporate this sort of financing and distribution end of it all. But I think we get a kick out of it. I mean, I feel like Neil has a stronger head, sort of a stronger mind towards production, and he leans a lot into production because I know that that's a lot of his experience prior to doing features. I tend to gravitate and focus on sort of post-production and stuff like that because I like doing that stuff. I mean, the overlap is huge. You know, we definitely share all responsibilities and accountability.
Yeah.
But I think it's either a coincidence. It just happened to sort of work out that way where we can kind of sort of oversee both ends of it, and it's fun, and I feel like we're lucky to kind of been able to do that.
And we don't really have to talk so much about who's doing what. It really kind of happens more just unspoken at this point, which is just a huge just blessing that we can kind of flow like that. But also Anish is just a much better business person than I am, and so I just want to add that you know, he has like it's just so nice to have, because there is this like complicated business part of it all. There's this creative part, and then of course all the personalities and just the kind of wackiness of the industry. It's a weird canvas to sort of work in.
The other thing I wanted to pivot to is the actual making of First Cow. For those who have been lucky enough to see it, I've seen it twice now, and I'm always amazed by how you did that movie and how you pulled it off. And I know the locations where you shot, but I still cannot figure out. Yeah, I can understand Cookie's cabin in the woods or King's cabin in the woods, but the fort and all of that. Can you talk a little bit about the physical production of First Cow here in Oregon and just what it took to get the look you have, which is so wonderfully authentic and naturalistic and really beautiful.
Thank you. So yeah, like this, I guess backing up, like John's novel, The Half-Life, is what The First Cow is kind of loosely based on. And so that was kind of the first book that we all became familiar with when we met John, even sort of back before and around the time of Old Joy. So this had been something that we and Kelly and John have been trying to figure out how to crack for a long time. The novel's like extremely expansive. There's like a whole section in China, and that, you know, they travel over the ocean, and so we just knew that that wasn't really something we could do.
And a little bit of it was like we were working
Yeah.
on a bigger Kelly, like sort of a different Kelly record project that we were trying to get off the ground, and we kind of ran out of time to get that one off the ground. And concurrently, we were pushing Kelly and John to work on something that was sort of derived from The Half-Life.
That's right.
And we kind of had to move pretty quickly with it, and it ended up being an amazing script. Like we didn't, I don't think we expected what we got from them. And then once we got it, it kind of came together really fast from like a financing standpoint.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and then with, I guess what we, you know, we had about 6 months to put the movie together from the moment that we realized Under Major Domo probably wasn't going to happen on that schedule to when we knew we needed to shoot First Cow. And it really, the production designer, Tony Gasparo and Janet Weiss and Kelly and our DP, Blauvelt, Chris Blava, and us, we just started scouting because we kind of, the mandate was work in the zone of Portland as much as we can. And like that really had to be the hard and fast rule. We broke the rule for the fort, which was down outside of Roseburg. And that fort is a recreation of the original, I can't remember the name, but it was a real
That's the
fort.
bit you did in Elkton. I was wondering what the bit was you did down in Elkton.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, so
Okay, cool.
Elkton was the fort, and that is a recreation. It was built in the 90s. The original fort got like swept away in a huge flood, so they built the recreation like up on the hill, and we just augmented it heavily. And by augmented, I mean like destroy, because it's like had beautiful grass and flowers, and it was kind of all, it was this very nice like park-like setting, but we needed to make it a sort of miserable 1800s, like a drippy, muddy fort. And so that was really the work. We had to kind of complete a wall and like add a bunch of logs and timber around and make the kind of gift shop into the saloon. And we really just had to make it a lot more terrible than it is in real life, because it's really a beautiful place. But I guess the rest of the production, like there's really just a handful of locations. I mean, Oxbow Park was a big one, McIver Park out on the Clackamas River, and then the Chief Factor's house on Savi's Island, and then the Chief Factor's backyard where the cow meadow is and stuff is a place out in Estacada. And we kind of built a little fake back of the house when they come running out, But yeah, I'm happy to expand on more like production questions, but that's kind of, I think, how we briefly kind of put it together physically.
Yeah, that helps a lot. I just, as I watch it every time, I'm like, oh my God, it is just one of the most sort of beautifully muddy movies I've ever seen, which is saying something, and it is so simple in the way it's designed, yet is so effective in the way, and they are so good. I mean, and every time I see it now, that ending, just, I'm not going to go into the ending because I don't want to spoil it, but it really chokes me up every time I see it because it is so wonderfully simple and perfect. So yeah, I think the look of it and the fact that you were in the woods in those parks and all of that really added to the feel of the movie, and I think that just it speaks volumes to the team you got around you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I should add that the Confederated Tribes at Grand Ronde were a huge contributor, just with artifacts and like historical research, wardrobe, and just figuring out how to make some of that stuff and what it would really be like. There are no photographs from the 1820s, so that was something we realized early on. Oh, this is gonna be really hard. Like we can't.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because that was my next question, is working with the tribes and the Native Americans on this, because that's very authentic in this piece too.
Yeah, and just like being accurate without photographs is just so hard. And that wasn't really a problem we sort of understood going in. But they, donated their canoes. Like those are real, like replicas. Like I think they maybe brought out of the museum, and like they really helped us do that, because we just would not. I mean, without a real canoe that actually worked and looked authentic, we just don't know what we would have done.
Yeah.
You just can't find that stuff or make it, really. Oh, we can't.
Yeah. Well, congrats again. It looks great. Amy, we got a few questions, right?
We sure do, and some really sweet comments and compliments too to both of you as producers and for the film. So if you're needing an ego boost, start reading the chat box.
Oh, thank you.
In the meantime, first question's from Michael. He asked, "How has COVID changed how you're targeting your audience for First Cow?"
Well, yeah, why don't you take that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, our distribution strategy definitely had to, like, our distribution strategy, I think like most independents would have just let us kind of, we would have rolled out to other cities as soon as it kind of got legs in some of the other major cities. But I think being on VOD, like we had a lot of banked press that Kelly had done for the theatrical release that we ended up kind of repurposing for this, for the VOD release. So I don't think we were able to kind of, I think some of the goal though was to expand Kelly's audience a little bit just in general. And that was going to be kind of by way of A24's marketing muscle. But I think being on VOD, we just kind of made ourselves available to everybody.
Yeah, I think that's right. It more kind of happened to us in a way, but
yeah,
it might actually, we might look back in a year or two, and we're kind of mourning the loss of the theatrical experience for the movie, but perhaps there is just a bigger audience for Kelly now as a result.
Yeah.
So that's the next question is December's asking how you started working with Kelly. How did that all come about?
So I was producing commercials in 2005 or 4 and 5 here. And a mutual contact at Wieden & Kennedy introduced me and Kelly's DP at the time, because Old Joy, like they were going to do it just themselves with like 3 people, but they decided to double the crew to 6 and bring on a producer. And, like it was that small, but they needed a little help. And so that's how we were kind of connected. So I remember she called, I read the script that day. I didn't know who Will Oldham was at the time. And she was like, Will Oldham's in it, Will Oldham's in it. And so I kind of had to learn what that meant. And, pretty shortly after that, I kind of became connected with Anish, and then Lars Knudsen and Jay Van Hoy, which were the other producers, kind of helping to put it together and get the financing together and just like make it all, because I was really just a production manager at the time doing small commercials. Like I had no idea how to actually like make a movie legal or like how to package it. We were really running around kind of basically without insurance and, writing checks out of like a personal bank account. And like, it was totally just that kind of a movie. So like without these guys, we wouldn't have been able to like deliver an actual film.
Well, Kelly brought everything back to New York, and I was working with Jay and Lars on a different feature in Austin, but we had all lived in New York, and she needed people in New York. And I think by way of Todd, she got connected to Jay, and that just kind of fell into our sort of circle. And yeah, we just kind of finished off the post end, and Neil and I were kind of 2 islands at that point. Like we were sort of just in touch about basic kind of things that might be useful for post-production or just kind of deliverable materials, but we didn't meet until Sundance. It was just kind of one of those things that we were truly independent of each other, which is the exact opposite of now, of course.
Next question is, and I'll open it up a little bit about what is it like working with Kelly and why do you continue to gravitate towards working with her? And I think that's a question that, especially at this time, everybody's asking themselves as they look at collaborators. We have a mix on this call of creatives and producers and writers and directors and industry folks, and it's a real mixed bag on this Zoom. But what is it that continues to bring you back to Kelly?
Yeah, I'll jump in for a second on that. I mean, we love Kelly as a human and as a collaborator. And like, I kind of think of Kelly as an artist that just happens to be working in film. She just really is a creator and a true kind of talent. And it's fun. I mean, she's taught me almost everything I know about like cinema and film. As I look back over the last like 15 years. But I think and she's also kind of taught us, I think, a lot about ourselves and like the kind of directors we look for. We don't tend to get heavily handed with material or scripts or casting suggestions or anything like that. Like, we really want to work with directors that we don't have to do that with. We want to let them go and facilitate what we can and just kind of create the space for them to do their work. So that's, I think, a little bit more our style than, kind of like coming in with a million notes and sort of manipulating outcomes. We really just want to kind of open the gates. And so that's a little bit, I think, our dynamic with Kelly is we really just try to give her the room.
Yeah. And I think it took us a few films, but I mean, because we've been working together for like 15 years now and done so many films with Kelly, we've all kind of gotten really comfortable with each other. So it is family at this point. She, we talk about everything collectively. We have our differences, we have our problems, but it all now that we've all kind of grown up together. And I think for a while we were just like the kids that were kind of helping Kelly make her movies. And, but we've sort of stuck with her and kind of, she is just like a really sweet person, like, and it makes it fun to work. It makes it fun to work with her,
The next question is from Diane, and she's interested in how you worked with John to develop the screenplay. And then there's a second question of, are you going to continue working solely in film, or are you interested in producing series, limited series, that kind of thing?
Yeah, on the script part, he and Kelly really just got together and did it. I mean, we handled the legal side of it and the kind of option part and everything like that. And we gave notes, and I think that Kelly and maybe all of our directors, they kind of look to us with the script more to just like, is there anything in here that we just can't do, like physically in the real world? And like in First Cow, there was a lot of talk about like how to break the branch and get people in and out of the tree and stuff like that. So there are like physical realities that might work their way back into the script in that way, so that we can actually do it. But
I think with First Cow too, yeah, like because we had to sort of pivot into doing First Cow off our other films, some of it was like, we never want to tell anyone they can't do anything. We want to let them know how we got to be creative to maybe achieve stuff, and let them kind of figure if that's going to end up being a compromise or not, or just try to do our best to figure out how we can get out of the way of what they're trying to do. And I think through that, organically, that kind of finds its way back into the screenplay in terms of, all right, well, maybe we're trying to make something that we can actually do and that's achievable. And I'll take that back in terms of incorporating into the screenplay. And in terms of like TV and limited series, I mean, I think the short answer is absolutely. We're very open to it. We have some stuff that we're working on. We just haven't really taken a big step forward in it. It feels like by the time we do, we get caught up in a feature. And since we're very much one at a time, it becomes hard for us to like pull our focus back to getting into that mode. But we're definitely open to it. I also just think it's just a completely different world. And I think you have to kind of be open to more cooks. And that's something that, at least with the filmmakers that we work with, we're just not really interested in making something by like committee if we don't have to.
Great. The next question is from Anna, and she's curious if you have plans to go into production before there's either a vaccine or a truly safe way to shoot, and if you're rewriting or working with folks to rewrite scripts so that you can do them more safely.
Well, I do think that we plan and hope to go back into production on Jeremy Saulnier's movie, which is what we were prepping in New Orleans. Like right now, the kind of target date is, the top of next year to start shooting around March. I doubt there's going to be a vaccine by then, but I actually don't really know what the latest sort of estimate on that is. As far as how to do it safe, I think we're going to be working right up to the minute to adapt and sort of see what is working and see what the protocols are. And also, Netflix is going to be totally on, because that is a Netflix original. And, we will be working within the sort of studio mandate for how that works at the time, which I'm sure will be thorough and totally as flushed out as it can be. Yeah. But exactly what that is, who knows? I'm sure there will be masks and lots of distance involved.
But it is constantly evolving. And, this next question from Jesse riffs on that a little bit. So much has been disrupted and change is changing all the time. For producers and creatives on the call, what assets, whether those are your relationships, your reputation, other things, or processes, do you think will be the most helpful going forward?
I think we're just trying to stay in touch with everybody that we work with, even if it's annoying. I think even with our filmmakers, because they are like family to us, we think about their livelihoods, and they're also not working right now. And we're always in the back of our minds very aware of that, and just trying to, by connecting with agents or distributors or financiers, kind of just seeing where everyone's at. And that's just something we've always tried to do, is just check in with as many people as we can, because it is somewhat of a small world, at least our little part of it all. And to know if a project's going into production, who's doing what about things. People just hear stuff. And that's always just very, very, has always been just very helpful. And yeah, so for us, it's really just about maintaining those relationships. Agents have been pretty good to us lately in terms of sending us some actually pretty decent material, or, people to talk to, because right now, I'm sure everyone has been saying, it's like a big development boom. I don't know if half this stuff will materialize, but it's a good opportunity to be able to read new projects, meet new people, further extend our reach as much as we can.
We talk a lot about creative and financial sustainability. I think, knowing probably half of you on this call, there's a lot of folks that, work in partnership with others that also have their own shingles or their own LLCs and are just trying to find a way to make it all work. Can you talk a little bit about how, you said, hey, well, we met each other at Sundance and then we started working on projects together and then we kind of got serious about it. What does that actually mean, and what does that look like, and how is that kind of evolved over time? Because I think that that's something that maybe isn't talked about enough, is how to make these friendships and partnerships and business deals all be something that actually can help sustain.
Yeah. I think it took us a minute, but I think we eventually just had to have a serious conversation about making this a living and not a hobby. And so we could kind of be a little more proactive about, all right, well, if we're just going to be making one movie at a time, I think actually thinking about it as a business and not something that's just cool to do. And it'd be fun if we got this off the ground or that off the ground. Sometimes we kind of can't do everything we want to do. We can't always take maybe the bigger number, because we feel like that doesn't really work for the kinds of movies that we make or anything like that. We kind of just had to have kind of a heart-to-heart about this has to be a long game, and how do we make it a long game to where we're not always sweating getting money or anything like that. That if we can get that out of the way, then we can focus on what we like. And so we just kind of came up with a very practical approach. And I think that kind of helped probably naturally solidify just trust amongst each other, that we could that's continued to evolve. I mean, to the point where, every movie's a venture, and now we have this bar restaurant because it's, in our minds, it's similar. It's like we're going on to this venture, and now, we're building something. We're in essence like producing something. There we have ideas that we're gonna really, really create something. And yeah, I don't know if that makes a ton of sense, but it's.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, we really just kind of looking back over the years of meeting, in terms of just how to kind of build something that's sustainable, it really is just one project at a time. And that's what it feels like in our shoes. We don't feel secure or like totally safe or plugged in. Like, it is just totally uncertain all the time, even before COVID, because like the film is crazy. It's the worst like business to sort of like set off into, I mean, we've been really fortunate, but I don't think there's ever a day where we feel like comfortable.
We kind of met at a very lucky time too, like just before the SVOD game kind of became, really kind of created opportunity. We met in 2005 and 2008, the market crashed. So a lot of private equity got out of the game, but that's also was the beginning of the streamers and everything like that. And that really forced that just forced other distributors to just get involved to compete. And that worked to our benefit. The byproduct of that competition gave us more opportunity.
Yeah.
And you do live in Portland, and as a recovering New Yorker as well, Anish, maybe you can talk, because I think probably the vast majority of folks on the call also are living and working creatively here in Portland. And I think that there's probably some pretty big advantages to that, but also just how do you navigate that? I think it's really important because you really do live and work and produce work here in Portland, and yet you're known nationally and internationally, and your work has traveled and continued to grow. And I think that, again, thinking about sustainability, that's the dream, man. So how are you all, pulling that off? And what are the advantages that you're finding that you can share with folks that are also out there trying to do the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, New York, I was just like you, like I guess I feel like I was starting to burn out on New York, and I spent more and more time out here, and probably, in the summers, and it seduced me enough to just feel like I had to just be out here more and more. And I think I got less fixated on, I think it was more that I kind of grew into what we were doing as a company. It was less about trying to gobble up as much as I possibly can and kind of make as much as I possibly can. I got to get a little more focused with Neil, and Neil was critical in that, of just keeping us sort of focused on what we were trying to do. And once I realized that, I can actually, this could be cool. I can get more elbow room. Like, life is very nice out here. I've done the New York thing. I feel pretty confident in our career and our ability to generate work, that I figured, why not? And I just sort of jumped, and I have no regrets.
And I think the other kind of thing about our work, as we decided, when we kind of made that decision, like, this is going to be a real company, this is how we're going to make our livings, as opposed to sort of trying to juggle like commercial jobs or whatever it was while we're kind of squeezing movies in, is, we had to be open to working out of Portland.
Yeah.
Because there isn't really any source of financing locally, really, outside of maybe the occasional private equity person or foundation. And I'm sure those things are there, but the real financing now is coming from, these studios and distributors, and so we had to kind of leave home and go do some movies in the, other states with, competitive incentives, and in those moments, and these moments take years, but like when we're doing that, like a movie, whether like, Hold the Dark, for example, in Calgary, we're thinking, God, we just can't wait to get home, and how lucky we feel to like live in Portland and kind of do our kind of work, our kind of long lead prep work, even though we have to go shoot somewhere else. You know, there are big periods, I guess, where we're just not here and can't be here.
Also, the film office is a big part of this, and I'm not just saying that. I feel like the Tim and the film office have been so supportive, and it's just like coming out of New York where everything's just a complete beatdown, to kind of do anything, and everyone seems to be competitive. And working with the film office there is difficult. I feel like being able to actually do constructive work with the film office and be able to for that to be able to be backed up whenever we're talking to financiers about incentives or anything like that, and to be able to actually speak from experience is it shouldn't be taken for granted. I've never really had that experience anywhere else.
That's very nice of you to say, but that also is from my own New York hangover that comes from. So that's good. Amy, I think we lost her for a second, but I actually had a question for you guys, because you sort of dropped it in there and we have not talked about it. If there's one business that's a little bit more messed up in the film business, it's the restaurant and bar business, and that's the other business you guys are in. So can you give a little plug, obviously, but also you're in the middle of a pandemic on that front too. And so what was the decision making around that decision to open the bar, and how is that going?
We had that perfect trifecta where we opened First Cow on March 6th, and our Rebel Ridge, our movie, shut down on March 13th, and then bars and restaurants shut down around the 21st. So it was
16th.
Oh, perfect. So
16th,
yeah, even better. Yeah, it started, we were always kind of spitballing about opening up a bar restaurant. We kind of fell into an opportunity to be able to buy property. That's what we came into this for originally. And there was a tenant that had a sweetheart lease that kind of sort of put us in a position to be able to be competitive in purchasing a property, which we did. And when we did that, we were like, one day we should open a bar. That'd be rad. We should. It just kind of happened really fast. Whenever that tenant, decided that they needed to vacate, we kind of just sort of looked at each other and was like, well, this is our chance. Should we jump on this? And we just decided to jump and do that. And with Neil's wife, with Amanda, we were able to come up with this concept for this bar and kind of, and just really
do
see it through. Yeah.
Yeah, and we kind of had it in the back of our minds when we were looking at the building, like it had been a restaurant, you know, and Mississippi Street was sort of coming to life at the time, and just one thing just fell in. It just kind of one thing led to another, and before we knew it, we were like in too deep to like get out, and we were just doing it just like any other movie project. But we loved it. I mean, from my perspective, all the years on the road making movies, you know, and at festivals, spending time in bars, it's just like we constantly were thinking about what we would do better, you know, to make a better environment, to create a space that we'd want to go to. And so that list literally started growing like in our shared list system, and we just decided to go for it.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And the food is delicious, and I think you've got a pop-up coming in there now, so you know, definitely to support everybody. If you live near there, definitely drop by. We had one more question from Masami. It says, "Hey Neil, great to see you. Love First Cow. As usual, your collaboration with Kelly is beautiful. I'm wondering if the Black Lives Matter movement impacts how you or Film Science are approaching new material and or how you're going about selecting new projects and collaborators."
Yeah.
One to end on.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. You know, I think that, you know, we have all for a while just been, you know, sort of realizing that, like, you know, film in general needs to be more diverse, and like we need to hear from like more voices than we currently do. And you know, I think we as a company would like to, you know, actually be involved in making that happen. And yeah, it's something that we're definitely aware of and super conscious of. And you know, especially, you know, Portland is such a diverse. It's a lacking place generally in terms of diversity, and you know, we'd love to make an impact there. And it's, yeah, we're kind of figuring out ways that we can do that.
We're in a position to be able to like spend money and kind of work our projects through all sorts of different sort of things throughout the city, be it banking or insurance or whatever like that. Lately we've been trying to ask ourselves, well, because we have the choice, like, we should think about this a little bit further. How can we actually, you know, do something that's a step in the right direction versus, you know, a bumper sticker or a shirt or anything like that. So we're trying to be more active about where our resources go.
Yeah. And so like with each project, you know, I think like if you look at a medium-sized movie, like the amount of money that's spent through a bank, you know, every dollar that goes through a bank or through an insurance company or, you know, the vendors, I think that's like one way that we can significantly, as producers, make an impact, is just like think about who owns those companies and where that money goes. Yeah.
It's a great spot to end on. You had some great questions, and like I said, a lot of love in the room today. So thanks everybody for being here and being present and asking such great questions. And thank you both so much for giving your time and for being so open and honest. You're a big part of why I came to Portland, certainly. So I'm excited to see what the next 9 months brings, because this has been not what I expected at all. So.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for having us.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much. It was nice to see you.
Yeah, thanks for all that you guys do. It really is meaningful to all of us. So keep it going and let us know where we can help and let us know where we can connect. Thank you.
Sure. Happy to be here. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it.
Happy Friday, everybody.
All
Get
right.
outside and enjoy.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Take it easy.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.